Hello there, Hidden Hermit here, and check it out, it's all blue. I've got a blue thing going on, and it's all blue because today we're talking about Cancer. Here is Cancer, looking kind of crabby. So, with my Cancer vibe, I've got some Cancerian rocks to tell you about, or to show you. Here is a garnet, a mysterious rock, very mysterious, I love it. Here is some gold calcite. And of course, as we have learnt the hard way, my camera will refuse to focus, but never mind. Here is a bit of moonstone. Here is a bigger bit of moonstone. And here is an even bigger bit of black moonstone. And I love black moonstone. Now, to be fair, black moonstone isn't necessarily attributed to Cancer. However, the moon is. And that was a bit of a spoiler. Here is an even bigger bit of black moonstone. I'm just being, well, showing off at the moment. So, Cancer. Cancer is a cardinal water sign. And water, here is water, looking very watery and feminine, which is precisely the vibe of water. Water in tarot, the alchemical element of water, of course, is indeed symbolized by the Ace of Cups. The Suit of Cups. And here is the Ace of Cups. Water and cups deal with things of an emotional nature. So your emotions, your feelings, your senses, and I'm not talking about hearing, seeing, smelling, your intuitive sense. It's all about your inner life, love, joy, sadness, and anything from an emotive nature, everything that makes you, everything that informs how you articulate yourself. That's your emotions talking. Even if you're an incredibly logical person, the fact that you are logical comes from an emotive place. That's pretty deep. I'm not going to go into that right now because there's a lot to go. I really want to keep this video under half an hour because I just get the impression that people get bored. So, moving on. So yes, it is a cardinal water sign, roughly running from the 21st, 22nd of June to the 21st, 22nd of July, depending on what year you're in. It is a cardinal water sign because it is the first sign of the season of summer. It starts at either an equinox or a solstice, like all the cardinal signs, and Cancer is the first sign of the season of summer. It starts at the summer solstice, which in 2018, which is where I'm recording this, is the 21st of June. Now, interesting thing about Cancer, the Constellation, that is that it's the faintest sign of the zodiac. It's the darkest side. It's almost not there to a certain extent. You know, you've got Leo blazing away one side of it, and you have Gemini with Castor and Pollux being very bright the other side of it, and Cancer's just like this little dark patch in the sky. The reason why it's so important is around 2,000 years ago, the sun reached its zenith in the sky in the constellation of Cancer, which is why we have the Tropic of Cancer, which is that imaginary line going around the Earth, just informing us of the zenith of the Earth's tilt, if you like, the maximum that the Earth before it swings back the other way. You can't really see a great deal on this card because there's a face in the way, but there's the constellation of Cancer. Now, Cancer relates to the myth of Hercules. He's fighting the Hydra, and then a crab comes along and cheekily pinches him on the toe, so he crushes it underfoot, which is a really sort of why, I don't know. I'm sure people out there will tell you the why and the meaning and the profound implications of a crab pinch, but that's where it gets its name, Cancer. Since then, astrologers and astronomers have also attributed the sign to other water creatures like lobsters, crayfish, water beetles. Previous to that, ancient cultures and ancient traditions had all sorts of different names for it. And it didn't necessarily center around a crab either. Far too many to list here, although there are two that are quite profound, I think. In ancient Chaldean and Platonist philosophies, the area of Cancer was called the Gate of Men, which is just amazing. They thought it was the place from the heavens where the souls came down and entered the human beings, which is just cool. Coptic Egyptians called it Bestia Sal Statio Typhonis, which basically means the power of darkness, and they identified it with Anubis, the god of dead, if you like, the god of death, the dead. Sorry. So yeah, anyway, the actual constellation of Cancer, despite being faint, it does contain something called the Proskepi, which is a cluster of about 50 stars around 520 light years away. It's pretty cool. So anyway, moving on. So let's talk about Cancers and Cancerians. Cancer does indeed rule the 4th house, which relates to things like the family, your relatives, your ancestors, the home. You'll find that Cancers are very, very caring, so that does kind of link in. Well, it does very much link in. If you are a Cancer, if you have... I don't know how you feel about my squeaky chair. I kind of like it because it's very comfortable, but anyway, moving on. So, Cancers. If you are a Cancer, or if you have Cancer as your ascendant, or to a lesser extent, if you've got Cancer, your moon in Cancer, you may be able to identify with some of these key characteristics. Cancers are a paradox. They are a water sign, so they're emotionally wide open, and they have intense inner focus. They're a cardinal sign, which means they can be, you know, ambitious. They have that spark of beginnings, so they got a good outer focus. So you have a huge paradox there. Cancers are seen to be they have great emotional sensitivity. They're very insightful, especially when they're trusting their intuition. They have very good memory. They think of ties to the past, and family and home, as I've already mentioned, are very important. They're loyal, affectionate, kind, protective, nurturing, and that doesn't just mean nurturing other people, you know, younger siblings or children. It also means themselves. They're very good at self-care. Cancers are very determined, which is where that cardinal energy comes from. They're very maternal as well. Even guy Cancers have a very sort of maternal, nurturing instinct. So at their best, they're very intuitive, they're very caring, and they have a lot of empathy. On the flip side, some of the nasty, I say nasty, some of the less appealing sides to a Cancer is they can be moody, defensive, fretful, highly strung, possessive, demanding. At their very worst, they could be prone to things like depression and insecurity, and there's a perfectly good reason for that. And to illustrate that, let's move on to the tarot cards. So the constellation of the tropical sign of Cancer is informed by the tarot card, the Chariot, and that's the Waite-Smith image. The ruling planet of Cancer is the moon, which is identified in the tarot with not the moon. That was a bit of a tease. The moon is identified as the High Priestess. Now you may think, what? The moon isn't the moon? That's crazy. But before you throw your tarot cards out the window and before you denounce astrology, there's some very, very good reasons why it's the High Priestess and not the moon. The moon, in fact, is the card associated with the sign of Pisces, and that's important. But here you go, here's the High Priestess. The 3 decans, you split Cancer into 3 10 degrees. Because it's a cardinal sign, it's the start of the suit of cups. So you put the ace to one side because that's the whole of water. So you go 2, 3, 4, 2 of cups, the 3 of cups, and bizarrely the 4 of cups. So let's look at those in a little bit more detail. I'm actually making really good time for once. Usually at the 20-minute mark at this point, but obviously I'm going to think, oh no, I've missed loads of stuff. Anyway, okay, so here's the Chariot. So in a little bit of a difference for this video, squeaky chair, I've dropped the Hermetic deck for this video and I've swapped it out with the Fountain deck, because my Fountain deck is called Nadine. She's really good at tapping into emotional sides for myself and for other people. So I thought I'd give her a little bit of a showing, if you like. Now the Chariot. The Chariot is, I feel, quite an often overlooked card. So here's the Waitsmith, and you have this image of a well, he's quite young in this card, but he's holding a wand or a staff. He's in his chariot with 4 pillars, and it's being pulled along by these 2 Sphinx things here. The important thing about the Sphinx is the colouring, if you ask me, black and white, and that is represented very well in the fountain, the top, and the night sun. There's sphinxes in the Waitsmith, horses in the night sun, and a mixture of both everywhere else. The Chariot, for many people, means things like travel and movement, which is fine. To get to somewhere from somewhere else, you need a mode of transportation. Could be a feet. Every time I get into a train, or indeed get into my car, I always briefly think of the Chariot, because it is the vessel that gets you somewhere from somewhere. So movement, traveling long and short distances, the energy of movement is always associated with the Chariot. However, I think it has a much deeper meaning. Well, I say deeper meaning. It's not a deeper meaning. I think when I pull the Chariot, I always think of that duality. So you have the charioteer here, and the card is called the Chariot, so it does refer to the vessel of transportation. However, the charioteer is like the focus point here. In the Waitsmith, there are no reins. He's steering this chariot by his sheer will, and I think it's important that you have these 2 things here, and they're always black and white, and we can see that. If I was just to pull the night sun, because it's very, very clear in the night sun, you have the white side and the black side, and we can see that somewhere else in the major arcana. If I pull the High Priestess out, and that is no accident whatsoever. So, other things about the Chariot. Let me just go back here. Well, let's move on. So here's the fountain, and it's a beautiful card, as most of the well, I say that we'll move on to the High Priestesses, because anyway, you get that black and white vibe, black, white. If I just quickly pull out the High Priestess from the fountain, you've got the color scheme is almost identical. You've also got the constellation of Cancer at the back here, which I actually had to look up just to make sure it was, and it is, so that's cool. This charioteer does have reins, but I don't think that's necessarily super important at this point. If we move on to the tot, as with most tot images, lots of stuff going on. You've got 4 things pulling this chariot along, and this chariot is amazing. You've got the 4 pillars, you've got a crab on his head. This guy's armoured as well, much like a crab is armoured. A crab is a very fragile creature. I mean, they're obviously designed to be waterborne, and they have those crazy weapons, but they're also quite soft, and they can be pulled apart quite easily. Interesting creatures, crabs. So yeah, the charioteer is managing to pull along his chariot, whether with reins or whether with willpower, and you've got these opposing forces that could be pulling the chariot in either direction, and the charioteer he's on it, he's handling it. The chariot is going to where it is needing to be by the fact that he's balancing these 2 forces. Once you invert the chariot, then that could be in form of you of an imbalance, of a need to readdress that and to bring things back. Because when things are in balance, things happen correctly. And that duality, that polarity, that gender difference is informed through all these Cancer cards perfectly. Now, the other thing I like to think about, just a quick word about the Night Sun Tarot. When you get the box for the Night Sun, it's the first image you see. It's the image on the front of the box. And incidentally, it was the first card I pulled from the Night Sun, so I do have a very special connection with this card. I love it. Now, you can do some really interesting meditations with the Chariot, thinking about the number 7. And the way you get to that number 7 out of the various combinations, I think, marry perfectly. First of all, if you can imagine the charioteer as the magician, and if you are -1 from 7, you get 6, the Lovers. So you can imagine that the energy of the Lovers, which in the Lovers card is in harmony, but if you move it forward with that mercurial magician instinct, you've got the Magician that's keeping the Lovers in balance. If you go down one, you have the Hierophant, 5 plus 2, the High Priestess, you get to 7. Now, in the original Marseille and Visconti decks, the High Priestess was called the Popess and the Hierophant was called the Pope. So you have that polarity of energies, of that sort of religious dogma versus religious intuition coming together to come to the Chariot. Again, those things are being kept in balance. Most profoundly, if you go down a step and take tarot key number 3, the Empress, with tarot key number 4, the Emperor, which the Empress and the Emperor, they're the archetypal masculine and feminine energies. And again, now there are so many things in our life that are down to masculine and feminine, and keeping them in balance, keeping them equal it always seems to be a good idea. Can you imagine if the world we lived in was a lot more balanced, if equality was an actual thing? Our lives would be very, very different. And my gut instinct is they would be somewhat better, I think. So yeah, there's the Chariot. That's all I'm going to say. The Chariot, I mean, the archetypal image of the Chariot, it's so deep. It's really deep. This video could be hours long, but it's not going to be, because I'm going to move on. So, here's the Moon again. Why isn't the Moon the Moon? The Moon is clearly the Moon. It's even got a sort of a Cancerian. That is indeed a crayfish, not quite a crab. So why is it not the Moon? Why is it the High Priestess and not the Moon? So Pisces has the Moon, and there's a very good reason for that. Pisces is in form of a moon in its most waxing, in its most changeable sort of way. The High Priestess is a slightly different vibe, very similar but a slightly different vibe. So looking at the Waite-Smith High Priestess, it's an iconic image. And who doesn't love the High Priestess? I love her. I wish she was my friend. And the image of the High Priestess it's classic, isn't it? It's classic. There is a fly in this room. That is so annoying. I love animals, but flies and seagulls I dislike. So here's the High Priestess between her 2 pillars, and these 2 pillars is a Kabbalistic influence. This is the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity, showing the masculine and the feminine energies. The High Priestess, as you can see, we have a big moon here, and she has this crown, this triple crown, showing the full moon and what's 2 halves of a crescent. I suppose you could snap them together and get a full crescent. The High Priestess, the religious connotation, she's got a cross there, and she's got her little book, and the important thing is this veil. Now, what's on the veil is, a lot of people suggest that these are pomegranates, which refers to the myth of Persephone and the fact that this female figure has been abducted to the underworld, and she spends half her time in the darkness and half her time in the sunlight. It's also, the pattern is also reminiscent, or indeed it probably is, the Kabbalistic tree of life. Lots of Kabbalah influences in the High Priestess. Excuse me while I go and shut my door. Sorry about that. So unprofessional. Unedited, unabridged. Now, it has been suggested, mostly by Crowley, let's bring out top, that the moon element of the High Priestess is specifically advising a waxing moon, so a moon that's gaining in power. And if we're looking at the top here, again, it's a cracking, I mean, I love this image. There's so much symbolism going on, from the platonic solids, the camel, which informs the Hebrew letter, this bow here, which is referring to the Dianic elements from Greek myths. But it's a beautiful, beautiful card. And yeah, and it really is guiding. If I'm just going to tell you, without sort of skirting around the subject, the High Priestess, or the Priestess, it's going to intuition, and to feminine intuition in quite a big sense, if you like. Here is the fountain. Now, another reason why I brought the fountain out today is to show you all these lovely cards, because it is a very sort of emotive deck. But I don't like this High Priestess card because she just looks really odd. So, you know, I apologise to the makers of the fountain deck, but she just looks really weird, and she looks really standoffish. The imagery is brilliant. The chair she's sitting in, the two veils, the black and the white, the moon in the background. It's beautiful, but I don't know, I just think she's really odd looking. But that's just me. Wouldn't worry about it too much. See, my incense is almost burning out, so I've got to speed up. 20 minutes. Sweet. Night Sun. Awesome, awesome image. Very dark card. And, you know, the moon in its waxing element is moving away from the darkness. However, you must acknowledge the fact that the moon does have different phases, that the moon has a, you know, in its totality, it's completely black, and as a full moon, it's completely bright. And Cancer, the tropical sign, Cancerians, that's their emotional makeup, that flux, that swinging, which is why they seem to be moody, if you like. And a lot of people point their fingers at Cancers and say, "Oh my goodness, you're so emotional," as if that's a bad thing. The trick is to bring that Chariot back into play, and to keep them in balance. Understanding that your emotions do swing from side to side is half the battle, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. Again, the High Priestess, you could talk about it forever, but we're not going to do that because we're moving on. So the 3 decans of Cancer. Cancer does run from the 21st of June to the 22nd of July, roughly. The first decan will be from the 21st of June to the 1st of July, and that is informed by the 2 of Cups. Now, more so than the lovers, I think, well, everybody seems to agree that the 2 of Cups means love and harmony, that sort of amazing balance. And in the Waite-Smith, it's a woman and a man. They're toasting each other, and you have this divine influence going on as well. Astrologically, it is Venus in Cancer, and of course Venus, the goddess of love. She's very at home, hanging out with the moon in Cancer, and so you get this perfect harmony. There's the fountain, that perfect balance of masculine and feminine again. Lovely image. Here's the top, and the top just says love. The Golden Dawn title of this card is the Lord of Love. Now, I've been thinking about the Golden Dawn titles, and I'm not sure if I'm happy with all the lords and stuff. Do you know, the Chariot has, I believe, the longest title. It's the Child of the Powers of the Water, Lord of the Triumph of Light. but yeah, I think I got that right. Anyway, so back to the 2 of Cups in the top deck, and you have the fishes, the water sort of element, and you've got the sort of the main water pouring out into the 2 cups, and they're overflowing. Everything's happy. There you have Venus in Cancer. It's a very pretty card. And yeah, like I say, interestingly, let's bring out the Night Sun, which is an amazing image. And the amazing thing about this is, if you were to reverse it, it means the same thing. And that's the generally accepted idea, that the 2 of Cups is pure love in its boundless parameters. And this is a cracking card. One is indeed male and one is indeed female. Perfect balance, perfect harmony. Venus in Cancer is a good thing. The cool card that signifies this decan is the Queen of Cups. So here you have all this energy, all this watery Cancerian energy, blue, harmony, love. This is the Night Sun, Queen of Cups, and she is a pregnant woman. Just to reiterate that maternal, Cancerian, caring nature. I wish the Queen of Cups was my mum. She seems lovely. If in case I forget, the Queen of Cups is indeed the court card decan ruler of the 3 of Cups. And again, this is one of those cards where everybody seems to agree. So here you have three figures. They're raising their cups in. They're saying cheers, basically. It's like the cheers card. I can't remember who said that. I think that's from the Modern Witchcraft. Sky Alexander. She calls it the cheers card, which vibes well with me. There's the fountain, and this is a difficult card to see because of the whole pastel images. But yeah, basically, three cups together. They're pouring into each other as well, which I think is a lovely wee touch. The Golden Dawn, call this card the Lord of Abundance. Crowley agrees. He just calls it abundance, and it's that vibe. This is Mercury in Cancer. So Mercury is very sexless. If we look at the glyph of Mercury, informed by the Magician, of course, it's a cross between Taurus and Venus. So it's kind of genderless, if you like. So you have that masculine and feminine harmony in the Two of Cups, and you add in the genderless Magician, the genderless Mercury, and you still get that harmony. You still get that party sense, if you like. And yep, these cups are overflowing again. These flowers are sort of pouring all that abundance, and yeah, it does also mean things like celebration, happiness, fun, community. If it comes up in a money reading, then at some point you've made a very good decision. If it comes up in work, then you're on fire, you're nailing it. If you get it reversed, the meaning is altered only very slightly, I think. You may interpret it as too much of a good thing, perhaps. But then that is kind of moving on to the Four. Now, here's the Four of Cups. Unlike the Two and the Three, there seems to be a little bit of conflict with the generic interpretation of this card. And there's a very good reason for that. So let's just run through this. The Waite Smith, you have this guy. His arms are folded. He's in a mood, really, isn't he? He's in a Cancerian grumpy mood, and you have this disembodied hand offering him a cup, which is basically the Ace of Cups, isn't it? And he's got his arms crossed, looking grumpy. He's got three other cups in there. Now, a lot of the interpretations of the Four of Cups are things like withdrawal, rest, boredom, stagnation, which I think is a little unfair, and the Hermetic decks disagree. So here's the fountain. It's very similar. I'm not certain what the squares mean, but you have that sort of cup up there. Now, there's a guy that I follow on Instagram, Elliot of Elliot Oracle, who also says that the Four of Cups could be accepting things from other people. This cup's come out, and this guy's like, no. So it could, and I think that's a lovely way of looking at this image on the Waite Smith. So shout out to Elliot there. And yep, we've looked at the fountain, very similar imaged, vibing with the Waite Smith. And this is where you get a little bit of a disagreement. The Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn title of this card is the Lord of Blended Pleasure, and Crowley called it luxury. See, numerologically, the number 4 is the mother, father, son, daughter. So you have that completion. And Crowley thinks that you still got that abundance sense, and you should be enjoying it. You've had these celebrations, you've had this harmony, and now is your time to actually enjoy that. The Lord of Blended Pleasure, the Golden Dawn title, suggests the same thing, but it also is very quick to point out that, okay, so you've enjoyed yourself and you've enjoyed this pleasure, this luxury, but things are going to move on. Things are going to change at this point. So enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to last for long. Now, the reason why we've got this conflict, that these different interpretations, and it's because we've got a double dose of the moon. The Four of Cups is the moon in Cancer. Cancer is ruled by the moon. Moon's everywhere. So it's flux in flux. So that is what I believe is causing this conflict, if you like. Now, here's the night sun, and I think this expresses it perfectly. You have this woman here, and she's doing a really good job of balancing these four cups, and looking great while doing so. So you're getting that chariot vibe back, that idea of nailing it, you know, of doing it. And because she's so adept at balancing these cups, she's enjoying herself, I think. I'm enjoying looking at her, so that's fine by me. Now the court card decan to the Four of Cups, the third decan of Cancer, is the King of Wands, which again, it's another element of conflict in here, because you've got the cancery, watery, moony vibe, with this sort of fiery vibe. Now it's the King of Wands because this is the last decan of Cancer. We're going into the fixed fire sign of Leo. That's what's coming next. So that could very much inform us of a bit of conflict. But yeah, the night sun is my chosen image for the Four of Cups, because you get that sense of balance. It's still there. She may be bored. She may be bored with all this luxury. Time to move on. And I think that is a good time to move on. I don't think I have forgotten anything. This is over 30 minutes. One day I'll nail it. one day I won't have to chase a fly out. And well, yes, look here, my incense is burnt down. It's time to call it a day. As usual, thank you very much for watching. From me, the Hidden Hermit, and the Squeaky Chair. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.